Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in for the District 10 Interscholastic Unified Tennis Preseason Coaches Briefing. My name is Allie Rock, and I am the Interscholastic Unified Tennis Chair. This is actually a re-record of the webinar that took place on August 29th. Due to technical difficulties, we had to rebroadcast the webinar and record it in a non-live situation. So I am going to review the same information that was presented on the 29th and also recreate the question and answers so that participants can review back to them. I just want to welcome everyone to the 2017 Unified Tennis season and those who are participating from District 11 counties. I'm going to introduce again myself, your district representative Laura Hines, and some of the key personnel on the Special Olympics Maryland side. Tonight we'll go over administration of paperwork with key forms and due dates, and also go over your coaches' resources within the Google Drive. And then I'll go over some questions that were raised last night on the original broadcast. I'd like to introduce, if you don't already know her, Laura Hines, who is your district representative. Laura's job is to oversee the implementation of unified sports programming that is developed collaboratively, by any of the local school systems and Special Olympics Maryland. She serves as a liaison with head coaches at each high school, assisting them with program support and addressing issues. She also ensures quality standards are being met in terms of practices and competitions, and the principles of unified sports are being followed. She serves as a gatekeeper for paperwork to make sure that it is properly completed and submitted on time, and she works with Special Olympics Maryland to ensure that Special Olympics standards and policies are being met. Laura is your first line of contact throughout the season. She will help troubleshoot issues. She is the person you go to for questions. You are speaking with, right now pictured on top, as I said, I am the Unified Tennis Chair. For the past 2 years, I've served in the assistant chair role. I also am the chair of the track and field season, which happens in the spring. We are excited to welcome this year Mr. Mark Sunkel, who's the Unified Tennis Assistant Chair. He is a previous Unified Tennis coach in the Frederick County area. He's also a varsity tennis coach for Linganore High School. I'd also like to introduce Kendall Zespitz, who is the new Regional Sports Director, serving the area that also encompasses your district. Kendall is the next line of contact after and in conjunction with Laura. It is Kendall's job to communicate anything on the Special Olympics side to you. And then many of you are familiar with Melissa Kelly, who is the Senior Director of Interscholastic Sports Programming for Special Olympics Maryland. Melissa sends out a lot of the communications, and you'll probably see her either communicating on behalf of me or me on behalf of her throughout the season. The first piece of paperwork I would like to go over tonight is the application for participation in Special Olympics Maryland. This form is to be collected one per student athlete. This has to be done each season, each year. So this is just a standard piece of paperwork that has to be done each unified season. Please, coaches, make sure it's filled out in its entirety. This is the same form that we used last year in the 2016 season, but it is different from any years previous to last year. So if you have this form on file already from last year, you can go ahead and copy it. Otherwise, I'll show you later in the presentation where you can find the digital form. I'd like to draw special attention to this section in the middle where the gray is, that is where we collect information about students with disabilities. But if a student does not have a disability, you still have to make sure that the no box is checked. It would surprise you how many people miss that. Also, we need a participant signature from the student athlete. So unless there is usually, in very rare circumstances, maybe a physical disability that totally precludes a student from signing their own name, at least in some form, every athlete needs to sign, student athlete needs to sign that. And you'll collect, again, one per student athlete on your team. Once you have established your team and you have collected all of those applications for participation, you, the coach, will fill out just one of these affirmations of eligibility. This will accompany all those applications for participation when you send those off to Laura. This attests that each student athlete has completed the requisite requirements to participate for your local school system and for Special Olympics Maryland, and that they have not competed on a junior varsity or varsity tennis team. And that has to do with the dual participation limitations in the COMAR regulations. If you have questions about that, you can refer to the webinar that was released in June that goes over the coach's resource guide, or you can talk to your district representative or one of us if that needs to be explained further. Oh, and again, you're going to fill out one affirmation of eligibility per school. So you're going to put everybody on this team who is eligible. Once this is collected, no one can be added to your roster. This is the official form. If you have students who start with you and then drop off the team and they're still on this list, that's totally fine. But if they are not on this affirmation, then they cannot be entered in the district tournament. They cannot advance to the state tournament. Player ratings, player assessments, which are going to be held later in the month of September. Each local school system will set a plan for a player assessment. Yours has been scheduled, I believe. I will go over that at the end of towards the end of the webinar. And so if you have not been through this process before, we take this form. Coaches, we ask you to pre-fill out the entire top and also pre-rate your student athletes to give the rater that's coming in a chance to take a look at where, kind of give them a starting point. Some school systems utilize their varsity tennis coaches, some utilize USTA representatives. Just a note, returning players should not rate to a lower level. You know, for example, if a player who played orange ball full court in 2016, that player will play orange, or they'll go up and play green, or in a very rare occurrence, yellow ball, but they should not go down to short court red ball. If it does happen at your player assessments where one of your student athletes maybe has a bad day, like I said, the rater is coming in kind of cold and doesn't really know your student athlete that well, and rates them lower than where they were in the previous year, we will adjust that back up to their prior year's rating. And that is another reason we ask you to pre-rate, so that a rater has an idea of what the student athlete can already do before he or she asks them to do any sort of drill. After this player assessment is completed, then you can start to form doubles pairs. If you need guidance on how to form doubles pairs, appropriate doubles pairings, you can refer back to the Coach's Resource Guide webinar that was done back in June, or you can refer to your Coach's Resource Guide if you prefer to just read the directions. And if there's any issues after player ratings, any difficulties forming pairs, you can always reach out to Laura, your district representative, or one of us on the Special Olympics team. We can always help. After you've done your player assessments, within a few days, you will complete the postseason tournament registration form. This is where you create your roster. So, like I said, if you have a large team, which does sometimes happen, all of them will go on the affirmation of eligibility, and then you will fill out one postseason registration per roster. So only student athletes listed on your affirmation of eligibility form can be put on this postseason registration form. It is an Excel spreadsheet. It needs to be submitted in an Excel spreadsheet. There are drop-down boxes, and we use this to copy and paste right into our tournament planning Excel files and such. So we do try to have that standardized across all the districts. So this cannot be handwritten and submitted via a PDF file or something. It has to be directly the Excel file. And just a note, the other forms can be handwritten, the affirmation of eligibility and the obviously the applications for participation. Those are perfectly acceptable to be handwritten. This one has to be electronic. But some common errors that we see are students that are ineligible to play because they're not on your affirmation form. You might be missing the team name, missing contact information, partial names such as first name, last initial, or just first name. It needs to be the full student athlete's name, and it should be the name that's on the affirmation. Sometimes we get a full name on the affirmation, but a nickname on this postseason registration form. So make sure those are consistent. Non-compliant pairing, or the combined score does not correlate with the event. So by someone's combined rating, they should be playing green ball full court, but they're listed as orange ball. And we point these out early in the season because oftentimes we have coaches that, accidentally have a combination team, a combo playing at the short ball red court, and really they're supposed to be full court orange ball, and that is very difficult for student athletes who have not been practicing a certain way to have to go up like that in a competition. So make sure you fill this form out as soon as you have your player assessments done and you've formed your doubles teams, because then you'll know early on if any shifts or changes have to be made. And this will be submitted to your district representative, Laura, and she will check it for errors after you've checked it to the best of your ability, and she'll pass it on to Special Olympics. There have been some changes and some additions to the requirements for non-student athletes. Last year, especially, there was a lot of information put out about who needs to be considered a Class A volunteer for interscholastic unified sports. So even actually since the spring, these have been updated and streamlined, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible on all of you. So individuals who must be Class A volunteers include the following, but are actually not limited to the following. But coaching staff, all head coaches and assistant coaches, any one-to-one, small group student aides, interpreters that might be traveling with your team to provide a service at the state invitational, student teachers, interns, or paraeducators that are serving as coaches or assistants at the state invitational, parents, guardians, or family members, those appointed or hired by the family of a student athlete who provide personal care such as or hygiene such as toileting or changing at the state invitational, students who are not playing but accompanying the team to the state invitational to provide support or supervision. This would be student managers, and then others identified by the school and Special Olympics Maryland, because Class A volunteer status is needed based on an individual's function. It is sometimes necessary to screen others, even though they don't fit into one of the above categories that I just talked about. So basically, to sum it up, any single person who is not a student athlete who is traveling with your team, or who may be traveling with your team should you move on to the state invitational, is considered a Class A volunteer and must complete the information that I present here. The first step is the volunteer application and release. What is pictured is page 1 of 2 pages that all non-student athletes have to fill out. is step 1.5. If the person in question is the student under the age of 18, they need the student minor reference form completed by 2 non-family references. This is, they do not receive a background check, and so they submit this reference form in order to serve as a volunteer. Here is what the student minor reference form looks like. And these things that I'm presenting right now are in the Google Drive. I will cover that towards the end of the webinar. Step 2, for everyone is to watch the protective behaviors video and complete the short quiz, which is available at this link. And this is a new requirement for all coaches that was established last year. However, once you've done it, it is good for a few years. This is due, all those non-student athlete requirements are due on or before the date of the district tournament to Kendall Zeswit, who is your regional sports director. And the reason that we ask you to give it directly to Kendall is because even though a Social Security number is no longer required, it is sometimes still listed by people. And so to streamline that sensitive paperwork, we try to have it submitted to only one person. If you have any questions regarding this process, you can contact Kendall, who is your regional sports director, or you can contact Rachel Maddock-Cosden, who is the registration coordinator at Special Olympics Maryland. Her email is there on the screen, or you can dial her directly. Before I go over this last emphasis with level the playing field, I'm just going to toggle over here in my web browser, and I want to show you the Google Drive folder for coaches. Hopefully my internet will bring this up, but you've already received the link for this Google Drive, but if not, it will be repeated in the follow-up email that you'll get from Laura after today. And here in the Google Drive folder is electronic of the Coach's Resource Guide. There's also all the forms that I discussed on this webinar. Also a copy of the score sheets. Oh no, okay. I'm going to attempt to bring this up while I continue to talk about these important documents. But so the Coach's Resource Guide, all the applicable forms, and give me a moment, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Nope. I must be having internet issues. But also on that Google Drive are Coach's Resource Training videos. Those are new this year. We used to have a statewide unified tennis training, and it was held in Anne Arundel County, and it was on a week night, and obviously was not the best or easiest to get to for everyone across the state. So we had Jeff Abel from Special Olympics do some web-based training. He's created videos. Those are in the Google Drive, and we will send those out to you so you can take a look at those. And they start with the very basics and move to how to do something on all the on-court things as well. So check that out. Also, I wanted to stress that we need everyone's coach's contact. That was asked for back in June. If anybody is new in the Google Drive as a coach's contact list, just open that up. Find your county and your school, and please add your contact information. We do use that as a distribution list. So we need everyone to update that as soon as possible. This last little bit before I go over due dates is our partnership with Level the Playing Field, which is an organization that obtains through local sports equipment through the sports industry. They collect sporting equipment, used sporting equipment, and they offer that to school systems that are in need to the free of charge. So we are partnering with them to help get rackets to every school system that participates in interscholastic unified tennis that might be short of that piece of equipment. We don't want student athletes to have to share rackets when everybody have their own. So if you need rackets for your group, you can fill out this link, this SurveyMonkey link right here, and it will ask for all of your information that will be submitted, and that will go through to Melissa Kelly, and she will pass that on to Level Playing Field. So if you are in need, fill that out today so we can get that process started. We will go, I had to go back. I want to go back to the beginning of this presentation to just go over your due dates before I handle the Q&A that came up last night when we did this webinar live. So those paperwork forms, the application for participation and the affirmation of eligibility are due to Laura Himes on September 15th. And your postseason registrations are due September 22nd. And those might be slightly different dates than are in the coach's resource guide, and those are adjusted to account for some time for Laura to review those. So she has time to get back to you if there are any errors. Player ratings will be on September 19th at 3:30 p.m. at Queen Anne's County High School. Your rating date is September 21st. So that is where you will come with your player assessment forms filled out and pre-rated. And the district tournament is going to be in a location to be determined in Talbot County. We were not able today, right now, to go over that Google Drive, but again, fill out that coach's contact list, take a look at all of the documents that are listed there, and give a look and a listen to the coaching tools in the coaching toolkit. This is the first time we're doing something like that with Interscholastic Unified Tennis, so we appreciate your feedback on whether that type of thing is helpful for you. So at this point in the webinar, when we were live, we asked for questions, and we got some very good ones. We had a question about if a team is full, meaning they've hit the maximum numbers of doubles teams at 5, but they have one individual skills competition athlete, is that allowed or is that acceptable? And the answer is yes. You may actually have unlimited individual skills competition entries. And so a follow-up to that might be what happens if you do have more than 5 pairs, 5 doubles teams. You can actually have multiple rosters that compete as like Team A and Team B for your school. And so if you have maybe 6 doubles pairs, which is phenomenal, you would split them to a team of 3 and a team of 3 so that they are both eligible to move on. Don't split them into a team of 4 and a team of 2 because the team of 2 is ineligible to advance. Another question was a concern if there are not enough players to create the minimum roster size of 3 doubles teams, like perhaps there are not enough partners or such, and so there's 1 or 2 doubles pairings. And that is not a problem. This is something we'd like you to work with Laura and Kendall on and begin the process early. You'll actually create a combination team with another high school, and the combined team will compete as one at the district tournament level. And this did happen last year in District 10. There was a team from Easton High School, and then an extra pair from Easton combined with some teams from St. Michael's, and they competed as Team Talbot at the district tournament. And that does happen across the state. I hail from Charles County, and there are combination teams almost every year down here in Charles County. But start that process early, communicate early with Laura and with Kendall about that so that they can communicate with other coaches on your behalf and get that process started. And then the question was, where will the district tournament be? Because there's concern about where there are actually tennis courts in Talbot County. And I said that that was something Laura would communicate with you when a location has been determined. So I thank you all who were able to be live. I apologize for the technical difficulties this time around, not being able to go through the Google Drive. That link will be provided in your follow-up email that will come out from Laura. And so you'll have some opportunity to take a look at that resource on your own. And just remember that we are always here for you, and I wish you the best of luck in your season. Thank you.